All right, then we will call to order the Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 City Council meeting. Let's start with our roll call.
Councilman Becker,
Here.
Councilman Hartwick,
Here.
Councilman Johnson,
Here.
Councilman Schultz,
Here.
President Scheer.
Here. Agenda item 3 this evening is public hearing. We have none. Agenda item 4 is public comment. As a reminder, the City Council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon. That would be your name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comments unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. We have people signed up to speak in audience, so I will defer to Clerk Ebert to call our audience members. I will be keeping track of the 3 minutes that you have. At the end of 3 minutes, we will ask that you politely leave the podium and we will move on to the next person. Clerk Ebert, would you like to call the first person?
Yes, David Neal, 1113 Maple Street. You're welcome to come to the podium. President Scheer will be timing you, and the green button should have a green light. Okay, thank you.
All right.
And again, please state your name and address.
Yep, it's green. David Neal, 1113 Maple Street. I just want to, again, thank each of you for your time tonight. I know you lead busy, very busy lives. So appreciate you hearing from all of us tonight. And thank you. I'll also say thank you for all that you do for our community. So I just want to address the farmers market and addressing what I understand to be another desire to have a drag queen come in the summer, as was present here last summer. Not only am I a tax-paying citizen of Fort Atkinson and I love my city, but I'm also a pastor here in Fort. And more importantly, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I have 3 children, ages 11, 7, and 5. And I want to read the mission of the Fort Atkinson Farmers Market Policies and Procedures. The Fort Farmers Market celebrates local foods and arts while nurturing neighbor to producer relationships, cultivating healthy communities, and integrating sustainable practices into our everyday lives. And then I turn the page and I read under market etiquette, to create a welcoming and clean atmosphere. We ask that vendors refrain from smoking and swearing. So regarding the policies and procedures, I really find a lot of disconnect and frankly, a lot of hypocrisy regarding what took place last summer and what many would like to see take place this upcoming summer. I ask each of you, you're not just on the council. Just as I have many roles, I have many hats I wear, so do you. But I want you to please just step back away from your role for a moment as a city council member and think about your roles, all of the hats that you obviously wear as dad, as mom, as grandpa, as uncle, as aunt, maybe grandma. You have nieces, you have nephews, maybe some of you have children. And I want you to really, again, step back and say, who am I to these children? Who are we to the children of Fort Atkinson? I have a responsibility not only for my own 3 small children, but also for I have a responsibility also.
David, that is your 3
citizen.
minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Neal.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you. If we could just remember we have a responsibility to protect all of our
Your
children.
time is up.
Fort Atkinson.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
I have to ask a clarifying question of city staff. Does the city council run the Fort Atkinson Farmers Market?
No,
Is there an item about a drag queen on tonight's agenda?
no,
No. Did we budget anywhere for a drag queen show in the city budget?
no,
No, we didn't. Is it the responsibility of the city council to micromanage any acts that are booked by anybody in Fort Atkinson?
no. The council action on the agenda tonight is simply to approve a special event permit that would allow the farmer's market to take place in the public parking lot that is located between East Water Street and Milwaukee Avenue East.
And is that process different from the approval process we have for any other event that takes place within the city of Fort Atkinson?
No, they all go through the same special event process, and the city council and city staff do not choose entertainment for any of those events.
Thank you.
Who's next?
The next person we have is Carrie Kendrick, 12 Cross Avenue.
Hello, Carrie Kendrick, 12 Cross Avenue here in Fort. I'm here about item F listed under the consent agenda. Review and possible action on special event Fort Chamber of Commerce Farmers Market. We came to you last year in June after the fact in regard to the drag show that was approved by the Chamber of Commerce. Well, we're here in advance of the appropriation of funds, and we demand that it be stipulated in writing that none of the monies that are given to the for the entertainment be used for venues that are violent, sexual, provocative, or gender related. There really is no need for entertainment at all at a farmer's market. As the market is supposed to be about farmers and crafts, people selling their wares. I and others would like to see a copy of the written stipulation, as I stated, that is attached to the farmer's market. While you are not directly involved with what they do, you do hold the purse strings, and we want those funds that are going to the farmer's market.
Can you clarify what funds you're referring to? Because
Whatever
we don't
fund-
appropriate funds.
You don't give any funds to the Chamber of Commerce for the farmer's market.
Not for the farmer's market.
We do not.
Last year you told us you did, but you weren't in control of what they do. Well, we would like it
No,
clarified.
sorry.
Maybe you can talk to them about what their venues are, okay?
Maybe you could.
I'm going,
And I will
Yep.
talk to them, because I'm going to tell you that if this persists, if you persist in you or the Chamber of Commerce persist in agendas like the drag show, I can promise you an army of folks like myself will be going door to door, exposing your involvement, and urge our community to vote you out, vote chamber members out. You have control and you could do something about it, I believe. But I leave you with God's wonderful words to us. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever things are true, whatever things are honorable, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these words. God's words, not mine. And you do have control. You could have control. So I'm not buying it. You give them funds. You can
Carrie, thank you.
attach
Your
the
time
venue.
is up.
Thank you.
Just for clarification again, city staff, does the city provide?
Who's
any
next on the
money-
list?
Next person is Jerry Tangway, 324 Rogers Street, please.
In light of what we have seen from the arts so far, I'll just.
Sir, I'm gonna need you to approach the podium if you're gonna speak.
Chris, he's passing.
Okay.
Who's
thank you.
next on the list?
John, your last name starts with an H. I cannot read your last name. 104 Jeff is the address that you had put down with a subject of city lights. John House. Thank you. Can you spell your last name, John?
Hausz,
Thank you, John. And what's the address?
104 Jefferson Street, FA Town. Okay, I just have a couple questions. I've been told that there's some defunding of some items in the city. like the band shell, they were given like $1,500 to $2,000 a year. I was told that that was not given out this year. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. That is something has been historic in this town for over 100 years probably. And I'm 73 years old, so I remember getting dragged down there by my ear. So I guess I'm just wondering where we can cut corners to fund something like that. I've noticed we have winter lights going on right now. I don't know if you call them holiday lights or Christmas lights. I prefer Christmas, but why do we have those on, wasting money, which could go towards these other organizations? So in a nutshell, that's the only one I can come up with tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next person is Terry Nelson, 2 and 3 Sherman.
Hello, so I'm Terry Nelson and
I'm sorry, what is your address?
213 Sherman.
Sherman Avenue? Thank you.
Yes. So I know I was here last time when we talked about the drag queen and I know that you said,
Speak up.
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I know that you said that you don't have any involvement. However, I just felt compelled to still just say a little bit because we're all part of this community. And I feel a calling to be loving and caring to everybody, no matter what their views are and that sort of thing. And I think given the hot topic, it's worth saying that, I know a lot of people, my friends are just like me. I can be a friend to these sort of people, but I don't consider it family friendly. And whatever your involvement is, if none, we weren't told that the last time we were here, and I can understand that maybe that just didn't fit. However, I just want to say, since I am here, that I don't support that as family friendly in any way. And it isn't a bigoted thing, or I read these things on the Fort Atkinson Facebook page that will be name calling and stuff. And I just want to be a voice of reason that says, I just cannot support that sort of thing. And I hope that whatever influence the city can have, that you would play that part. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Elliot, I cannot read your last name and I have 415, I believe, McMillan.
My name's Elliot Larson. I live at 415 McMillan Street. This pertains to the object to giving 4th Street to the hospital for parking. Please keep an open mind to this meeting. Number one, the parking is for commercial growth, I feel, more than it is for the employees. It also changes where the heavy trucks and commercial traffic go to the residential area. There'll be more of that. It forces taxpayers to absorb charges to underground utilities for the section being considered that are already there. Also, the area that they're trying to eliminate, the 4 houses on 4th Street, it will alter the emergency response to both sides of the affected areas. This section of 4th Street, I pay for its upkeep and have an expectation to use it in the future. And I hope you consider that. The other thing is, I hope that the letters and the emails that Andy has gotten will be either that are for or against, need to be read or given a copy to the Planning Commission so that they understand how we feel about this situation. either for it or against it. Thank you for your time, and I hope you take this with full heart for all of us in this lovely community. And the hospital is very good for us, but we have to look out for the community altogether. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Next on the list is Jeannie Newbold for 11 McMillan Street.
Jeannie Newbold for 11 McMillan Street, Fort Atkinson. What a turnout. I think we are all here because we care about our community. We care what happens to it. I believe the city of Fort Atkinson, we want the reputation to be a family community. That's important to all of us. If we don't have our family, we have nothing. So I had no idea about the other issues with the drag queen, but I'm with you. So what I'm here to talk about, though, is the vacation of North 4th Street, the closing down of North 4th Street in front of the hospital between Armenia and McMillan Street. My number one concern is my property value and the property value of the neighbors. 2 is the traffic flow, which there has not been any studies yet. You said we were too early for that. I think we need to get on that pretty soon, so we have a clear understanding. We'd all appreciate that, to understand that. The lighting, we've talked about the lighting. Jim Nelson has shared with us a lighting diagram. But one thing that we never talked about at the February 18th and the 2-1 meeting was the signage and the lighting there. Those are really bright lights also. So that's one thing that we didn't discuss at those meetings. The noise, of course, the vehicle remote starting, the alarms, the safety and security. When talking to my neighbors, I wasn't surprised, but many of them have all installed Ring doorbells. And the reason they did it is what they told me, several of them, is for protection, because they're seeing strange people walk by, people they don't know. They have children and they're concerned. So they've installed that security system to protect themselves. I do want to mention in Fort Healthcare's March 2016 press release, it stated the reason they acquired the property out on Highway 12 and 26 was because they had reached the limit of capacity and that they can no longer use a good portion of our campus for acute patient care because of regulatory changes over the years. It also stated that, quote, we need to make sure that emergency vehicles can quickly and easily access us from Johnson Creek, Lake Mills, Jefferson, Cambridge, Whitewater, and the surrounding rural areas. Well, if they shut down and block off North 4th Street, where are those emergency vehicles going to go?
Thank you. That is your 3 minutes.
And it goes on from there, but thank you.
Next up, excuse me. Jim and Bonnie Cunder, do you own property or are you residents of the city of Fort Atkinson? I'm sorry. The next, Braden Griffith, are you a property owner or a resident of the city of Fort Atkinson? Okay. Jared Torres, 1000 Caswell Street. Okay, thank you. Sandra Munch, I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, 313 North High Street. Thank you. Ron Martin, 409 Natick Drive.
Thank you. Ron Martin, 409 Natick Drive. Well, I want to congratulate the council, especially Mr. Becker and Ms. Hartwick, for attempting to squelch the public comments from the get-go here.
We tried to
We-
squelch public comment, Ron.
We,
All I
Okay,
asked was
is this a
clarifying
debate?
questions.
Is this what the public comments are going to be
This
now?
is not a debate. Continue.
Okay, thank you. We get it. You don't provide funding to the farmer's market. We understand that the city council does not control what goes on at the farmer's market, and that that's up to the Chamber of Commerce to set those policies and procedures in place. We understand all of that. The thing is, though, that the farmer's market takes place on public property. It's a city-owned parking lot. So saying that the city has no control over it or no jurisdiction is really kind of a cop-out, because when the rubber meets the road, the city really would have some control or some say in the events that take place there. And that includes last summer, a drag queen show at the farmer's market. Now, you can deny all you want that you have no responsibility, but we're not going to buy that. And we're not going to accept another drag queen show or even worse events taking place at the farmer's market or anything on public property in the city of Fort Atkinson. Thank you.
Ron, where did you read that a drag queen was coming? Where did you
Mason.
read that a drag queen was coming?
Mason,
Yeah.
please stay in order.
Clearly not.
Moving on, please. Clerk Albert, are there additional people?
There are no other people signed up in the audience. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. My apology. Bill Shipley, 101 Sherman Avenue East. I'm sorry. Thank you for commenting.
My name is Bill Shipley. I live at 101 Sherman Avenue East. What other information did you need?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. I was under the impression that the city council did have purview over what transpired with the Chamber of Commerce. And last year, when this came up, I specifically asked that you would write that in, that you did have some kind of oversight power with that. So I wrote a speech, but here it's apparently it is moot. But I will chime in with Kerry Kendrick and Ron Martin. Yeah, that I would agree with what they said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, was there any others that had signed up or wished to sign up that I had missed or missed the opportunity? Thank you. President Scheer, there are no others in the audience.
All right, thank you. This will be a first call for public comment via Zoom. This will be a second call for public comment via Zoom or in person. This is a third and final call for public comment via Zoom or in person. Seeing none, hearing none, we will move right along. Public comment is closed. That takes us to agenda item number 5, which is our consent agenda. As a reminder,
Chair, Councilman Johnson here, I'd like to move that we remove item 5F so that we can debate it here in public so that people know how we all stand.
let me get through the consent agenda and then
I'll second that.
I missed the motion.
Councilmember Johnson made a motion to remove item 5F from the consent agenda. Councilmember Hartwick seconded.
We have a motion and a second to remove consent agenda item 5F from the consent agenda as listed. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
I
Oh,
would,
go ahead, Mason.
I would move to approve items 5A through 5E of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We will now move to agenda item 5F, which is the review and possible action on a special event for the Fort Atkinson Chamber of Commerce Farmers Market on Saturdays starting May 6th through October 28th, 2023 at the parking lot located between South Water Street East and Milwaukee Avenue East from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Thank you. This is the annual request submitted from the Chamber of Commerce for the farmers market that occurs in the public parking lots adjacent to East Water Street East and Milwaukee Avenue. The event would run on Saturdays from May 6th through October 28th. Permission was requested by the chamber to allow closure of the parking lot and to provide barricades from the Public Works Department to assist with closure and provide safety of the patrons. This was routed to all city departments as all special events were. There's no concern by any departments as again, they're requesting closure of the lot and barricades, which the city is happy to provide at no cost to the Chamber of Commerce. Be happy to answer any questions by the council.
I would just like to remind our council that we are debating any merits of the farmers market and not of the entertainment of the farmers market.
I will make the motion to approve the special event for Atkinson Chamber of Commerce Farmers Market on Saturdays starting May 6th through October 28th, 2023 at the parking lot located between South Water Street East and Milwaukee Avenue East from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I'm just gonna add, I mean,
You can second and then the debate can occur. Right.
That's what I want to see, the debate occur.
Yep. Okay. So if somebody wants to second,
I'll
Yeah.
second.
thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Bruce, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, I'll start this off. I want to thank you all for coming here, the interest in this. It's nice to see people take interest in the city government. I sit many times up here at city council wondering where everybody is. There's usually vacant seats out there. So I like to see people come and express their opinions. I think some of your opinions are, although I have great sympathy for how you feel, but they're also somewhat misfounded. The city council did not create that situation last summer. It happened because there were certain rules that didn't forbid it to some degree. Your voices have been heard, whether you believe it or not, your voices have been heard. The Chamber of Commerce has rewritten their code or their rules as to the farmers market and how it's to be handled. I'm going to read to you a part of it. The part of it that I found important would be that entertainers must be cognizant of family-friendly atmosphere of the market and ensure content is appropriate to all ages. Profanity or vulgar language is not permitted in performances. By agreeing to perform at the Fort Farmers Market, you are agreeing to adhere to the expectation that no political, religious, or what could be deemed as activist campaigning is permitted in the performances. Your voices have been heard. They've adjusted their position on it. I honestly believe you won't see a repeat of last summer. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I know what it looks like. I don't think you'll see a repeat of it. I think that your voices have been heard. There are certain things we can and cannot do as a council. We cannot violate laws or regularities or do things that are not by the book. But I think your voices have been heard. And I want you to know that they've been heard. I heard you. I heard you.
I'm just gonna add, I had the exact same thing pulled up to read from the chamber and contrary to comments about our interjections, I just think part of our role is also to clarify information, right? So if information is being put out to the community or folks are coming up here and speaking about things to us that simply are just not correct or are not a part of our process or not how these things go, I do think it is our role to clarify those things, not just for our sake, but for that individual who's speaking sake and community-wide, so they have a better understanding of how this process works, what our policies are. So, when someone is upset that funding is going towards something that they don't support or believe in, I think it's important for us to add that we do not provide funding to that. Again, just getting that clarity out there. But to Bruce's point about
Excuse me, excuse me.
Yeah. But I also think, again, there has to be a little bit of due diligence and understanding done of where these conversations need to be had. A quick phone call or email to the chamber, and they could have clarified for you what this new policy is that's in place, that there is not a similar performance planned for this summer, and that they have heard the feedback and they have had internal discussions with their board and their staff, and they have put a new policy in place. To me, that really kind of answers that question and addresses it. We cannot, as a council, just decide to take more authority over an organization when that authority doesn't exist. I understand the concern over when things take place on public property. But again, what we were voting on tonight was simply whether or not to allow the farmer's market to exist again in our community, which I think is something I would hope everyone in this room agrees that is important. It's a benefit and an asset to our community. And I think the chamber has done a really good job with a new staff in place of recognizing that there were a lot of things that maybe weren't handled the way that they should have been handled. And again, they've had those conversations and put a new policy in place to address that going forward.
I would also like,
Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. We're not yelling things from the audience, please. The public comment period is over. Thank you.
I'd like to also reiterate that the farmer's market is a wonderful adventure. It should stay on. It should stay going. I believe that the chamber heard your voices. I think they've made the adjustments to make you satisfied with this year. If not, we'll revisit this issue, but at the moment, it seems, I believe it's going to be settled and we should move forward to keep the farmer's market. And I think you're going to be pleased that you won't have anything to be mad about this summer.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any
Okay.
further discussion?
I'll add some discussion. I prepared a statement mostly because I don't speak all that well when I, write or speak off the cuff. What we are voting on tonight is whether or not we're going to allow the farmers market to happen this year as a special event within the city. And I personally do want to see the farmers market continue in Fort Atkinson. I do understand the concerns of residents about that specific performance at the market last year that many of us did not deem as being family friendly. It was too vulgar and inappropriate for many. If there are any more complaints about that specific performance at the farmers market in the past, or concerns about possible future performances, I would ask that you direct those comments to the Chamber of Commerce. And I personally did the same thing myself as a resident. Bruce mentioned how the chamber did revise their guidance in January of this year. And one thing I don't think that was mentioned or brought up was that it states that the performers should be either vocal or instrumental performers. And that they must, be cognizant of the family-friendly atmosphere. Now, as a, resident, I did ask the director of the Chamber of Commerce that I felt that the term family-friendly was a little bit too loosely worded and can be subjectively or, perceived in different ways. And that I hope that these performances are family-friendly to all, not just those on a specific side of the political spectrum. Most of the chamber staff is new since the last year. We have a new director for the Chamber of Commerce, and I believe that most of her staff is new as of October, based on a conversation I had with her. I'm uncertain if the specific individual who coordinated and organized that highly criticized performance last year is still in that role or even at the chamber. Again, what we're discussing tonight is whether or not we're going to allow the farmers market to happen. I'm with you on a lot of the things you guys talked about tonight, and for the residents who, emailed me, called me, texted me, I hear you. And I would personally prefer not to see that happen again. And I hope that the Chamber of Commerce has heard our voices.
Any further discussion?
I'll just say I agree with everything all three of you said up here. I support our chamber. I support our farmers market. I don't support intentional misinformation that's put out. And I think some people should be using more discretion about what you choose to believe on what you read on certain Facebook groups. So maybe take that under advisement and maybe things can run a little bit more efficiently. But I support our farmers market. I support continuing with it, and I support free speech in all its forms.
All right, again, we have a motion and a second. If there is no further discussion, all of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We will now move along to agenda item 6, which is petitions, requests, and communications. 6A is the introduction of a resolution discontinuing a portion of North 4th Street between McMillan Street and Armenia Street in the city of Fort Atkinson.
Thank you. As you heard in the public comment period tonight, the meeting this evening is introducing the resolution to consider the discontinuance or street vacation, as some have come to know it, of a block of North 4th Street between Armenia Street and McMillan Street. We've had a couple of public meetings which were not required, but hosted by Fort Healthcare. We've heard city staff I have been at those meetings, heard from the residents, their concerns, also heard from Fort Healthcare as well. This is certainly, I think, a challenging issue that will move forward, and one that happens when you have an established institution like Fort Healthcare within an established neighborhood, as we do here in the city of Fort Atkinson. And we've expressed such at those meetings. This resolution this evening is just simply to move forward the process. The meetings were listed in your packets. They've also been transmitted to all of those that were at the meetings that Fort Healthcare held, as well as a letter that went out to residents along North 4th Street. And a bit extended from there as well. So I think the information is out about the public process. This will go to the Planning Commission meeting, and then it will come back to City Council for both a public hearing, where there is some exchange within the public hearing and answering of questions, and then the council will consider the matter at that March 21st meeting. Again, I think we've continued to indicate that there is a lot of information that will come forward. The Planning Commission will be the first place where we'll put together a report from city staff in memo format, as we usually do, and we'll address all of the concerns that have been brought up from both the residents and Fort Healthcare related to this, so that both Planning Commission and then council will have the opportunity to sort of get answers to some of those traffic questions, drainage questions, and things of that nature. We have received thus far many of those letters that were mentioned earlier. I believe we received 20 thus far as of today. 14 of those are not abutting 4th Street, and 6 of those were abutting. The statute that controls the street discontinuance or right-of-way discontinuance does indicate that if 1/3 of those property owners abutting North 4th Street indicate in writing that they object to the vacation of 4th Street, then the approval by City Council has to pass by a 4/5 majority. If 1/3 of the residents abutting North 4th Street do not object, then the resolution can pass by a simple majority or a 3-5 vote. So that has obviously been communicated in the public meetings. We're receiving that information. So all of that will get to both Planning Commission and City Council as it arrives. So as we've said, it's a challenging situation. Fort Healthcare is a pillar of our community, as is that neighborhood. And I suspect that these conversations have been had for many decades before any of us in this room have been engaged, and will probably continue further. So that's why we have this public process, so that we can talk about these things in the public realm and ask questions and have good answers and good information provided. I'd be happy to answer any questions council has on the process at play going forward.
Andy, can you just clarify a little bit? I know it was brought up, and I'm sorry, I can't remember if it was Mr. Larson or Ms. Newbold that brought this point up, but about traffic patterns and how it was, I think the comment was it was too early to evaluate things like that. Can you just speak to that
Yeah,
piece of the process a little bit more?
sure. So the extension or the vacation of Fourth Street is for a parking lot. The parking lot will not attract more traffic. However, the traffic patterns will change. And that was brought up with respect to police and fire and the routes that may change associated with that. The indication was that we would look at that and provide that within the memo format that we'll give to Planning Commission and to City Council. I haven't specifically asked the fire department or the police department to weigh in on that, nor have I looked at exactly the routes that may be taken associated with this. And frankly, the routes that won't be taken, because Fourth Street certainly is a street with no stops on it. So it will defer traffic outside of that area as well. But that will be provided for public consumption at the Planning Commission meeting and at the City Council meeting.
So that'll be before that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up the timeline here. So before that February 28th.
Correct.
Meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
the memo that we typically provide for those agenda items will reflect that as a paragraph, basically with some information in it.
Okay.
And that packet does get posted the Friday before the meeting publicly on the city's website. And we have communicated that to everyone on the public side that we can get that information to them or help them get it if they have a hard time finding it.
Andy, can you clarify for me? You talked about people who have property about the situation and a percentage of them that need to, if they sign in writing that they're against this, that it changes the votes required by city council.
Correct.
Are we at that point?
We are not, no. The number of property owners that are abutting North 4th Street are, I'm going to use round numbers here, about 60. And so a third of that would be 20 that would indicate their objection to such. And that, as soon as we hit that number 20 or 1/3, then it would require the 4/5 majority as opposed to the 3/5 majority by council.
And Andy, can you remind us, is that by a certain date, or is that as long as that's before whenever council would potentially be having that vote?
I think it's the latter. It doesn't indicate such in statute.
Okay.
So I think a written, the clear part of the statute is the written objection. So I think as long as it is received prior to the meeting on March the 21st, I think that would probably be the expectation there.
Of the 20 required, we have how many?
As of today, we had taken a look at them and believe we have 6 of the abutting parcel owners. There were certainly a number of other folks within the neighborhood who had provided objections, 14 total, but they do not reside on North 4th Street. And the statute clearly indicates that you have to be an abutting parcel owner on North 4th Street. So basically you have to have property on North 4th Street. It goes all the way to High Street and then all the way to the east down to Sherman Avenue or Highway 106.
Thank you.
I will also just note that all of those letters, petitions, anything we receive in writing will go to the Plan Commission and the City Council, regardless of if the property owner is abutting 4th Street or not. So the council and the Plan Commission will have all of those letters.
I just wanted to add, and certainly thank you to the two of you who came to speak on this tonight. I've hugely appreciated the effort that some of the residents in that area with the concerns that they have, that they are being vocal about them and doing them, having those conversations in productive ways. I know we've already received a direct email from a resident. We've had some folks come and speak. I've had a phone conversation with another one. So I would certainly say, keep those questions and concerns coming throughout this process. I think that's why the process exists. And I also want to say that I've been appreciative of the conversations that representatives from Fort Healthcare have had with us as well. Had a very long phone conversation last week, a lot of email follow-ups since then. So there is a lot of work being done to try to ensure that as much information is being gathered and being evaluated and shared. So I would just encourage folks to continue participating in that process, but certainly continue reaching out to us with questions and comments and feedback that you have about this.
I move to set a public hearing for the resolution discontinuing a portion of North 4th Street between McMillan Street and Armenia Street for March 21st, 2023.
Second. I'd like to add though, before we vote, I appreciate the comments as well. We did get one very well-written email about this. A lot of people might not realize I grew up in that neighborhood. I grew up on Memorial Drive. I have many fond memories of riding my bike across 4th Street to my friend's house on Armenia. So, you know, I'm not eager to see that neighborhood change necessarily, but at the same time, I know we heard comments about Fort Healthcare having bought that land west of the bypass a few years ago. I really do think that long-term it is in the best interest of the city of Fort Atkinson that the hospital remain where it is, and that in some way we facilitate its long-term growth and security, because we are really lucky to be a city of about 12,000 people and have a facility of the quality of Fort Healthcare and what they're providing. Many communities across the United States our size don't have that. So I hope no matter what kind of discussion we have, you know, people are cognizant of, we're trying to help a community asset continue to be successful, you know, no matter what we end up doing. So thank you.
I actually, sorry, Chris, one more thing, and Rebecca, maybe this is more of a question for you, but just looking at the schedule for this, is it required or standard that the vote happens the same night as the public hearing on the issue?
It is not required.
Okay. Okay. That was just the only part that concerned me a little bit. I mean, obviously we're leaving enough time that if there are residents or folks who want to provide feedback or give comment, that there's ample opportunity to do that. But I just think we might want to consider giving ourselves a little flexibility with that vote if things would come up in the public hearing that we think we still need to learn more about or discuss before we would potentially make the decision.
All right, well, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or comments?
Yeah, a clarifying question. I drove North 4th. Yeah, you mentioned no stops on North 4th Street. I believe there's at least one. I drove it on Sunday. I just don't, unless
You might be right.
I'm pretty sure I was on 4th Street.
I just learned this evening of a new there's a new street, Crest Street or Cross Street was mentioned, and so I could be in error on that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and as the other council members stated, like, I don't live on this part of town. And so the letters input from public is really going to help us get a really good understanding of, you know, the hospital plans, what impact it's going to have to the neighborhood. And so I definitely welcome public input, especially from those that live in that neighborhood.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We will move on to, thank you. We will move on to agenda item 7, which is resolutions and ordinances. 7A is the review and possible action relating to a resolution adopting the 2023 through 2028 City of Fort Atkinson Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan.
Yes, thank you. Good to see everyone here learning about parks tonight. I'm before you today to give a little background about the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, and then give Emily the floor to present the plan, who is representing MSA. As mentioned in the memo, Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, otherwise known as CORP, is a planning document that sets goals unique to Fort Atkinson's Parks and Recreation Program. The plan provides an analysis of parkland and recreation needs and demands, demographic trends, and recommendations for improving existing parks, bicycle, and pedestrian facilities. It's important to have a plan in place to be eligible for state and federal grants for acquisition and development of open spaces and facilities. In order to remain eligible, the CORP must be updated every 5 years. I also wanted to mention all grant requested projects are required to provide matching funds equal to or greater than the amount of the grant award. It's also important to note that this plan identifies conceptual locations and recommendations for different types of parks and recreational facilities. In nearly every case, more detailed planning, engineering, study, budgeting, and discussions will be necessary before decisions are made to actually acquire land or construct recreational facilities. So back in April of last year, City Council authorized the city manager to execute a contract with MSA to create our first corp since 1990. Since then, the Parks and Recreation Board, city staff, and MSA have worked on preparing the corp through many public engagement opportunities. Emily will touch on tonight. The Parks and Rec Advisory Board had 3 board meetings between April and December to discuss items, and also took a thorough parks tour to discuss needs and wants. The board ultimately recommended adoption at the December 14th meeting, and Plan Commission recommended as well on the January 24th meeting. So with that, I will turn it over to Emily to present the corp.
Thank you, everyone. Well, thank you for welcoming me to your community and to your meeting this evening. Let's see if I can get the clicker working.
I can advance the slides too if you need
Perfect,
that.
thank you. I won't spend too much on this. Brooke did a great job summarizing, but like she said, we kicked off the corp last June, and these are the major sections of the plan. Next. So to just dive right in, this is a brief overview of our quantitative analysis. So there's a standard set by the National Recreation and Parks Association to see the level of service that a community provides in their park. So a common one is providing kind of an acreage per 1,000 residents. So in the city's comprehensive plan, they set a standard to provide 8 acres per 1,000 residents, and Fort is exceeding that standard currently with 255 total acres. That comes out to 20 acres per 1,000 residents. So in comparison to communities of a similar size nationally, that's well above the median and almost within the upper quartile of the distribution. Next. Like Brooke said, we did some pretty robust public engagement for the plan, and as always, that's a core element of any planning process. Our public survey had nearly 570 respondents. We held 2 focus groups with civic organizations and sports organizations that frequent the parks. At a farmer's market, we held an engagement booth where kids could play Connect 4 and put desired amenities on a map of the park system and vote on if they agree or disagree with the plan's preliminary recommendations. Next. This is a key part of our geographic analysis. So this area in green that you see on the map is an aggregate, if you imagine drawing a 10-minute walk radius around each public park in Fort Atkinson, and you combined all of those radii into one big shape. So that is supposed to demonstrate the areas where the areas within Fort Atkinson where you live within a 10-minute walk of a park, which is about a quarter of a mile. The colored circles that you see on the screen are meant to identify gaps within Fort Atkinson where there is residential zoning that falls outside of that green walk radius. And in the text of the plan, those colored circles are used to guide the reader between the map and the text. Next. So kind of keeping that last map in mind, this is our map of proposed new parks and trail facilities. There's 4 proposed parks, 2 in the southwest and 2 in the northwest and 2 in the southeast. These recommended new park locations actually come from the comprehensive plan, but they aligned well with our geographic analysis. So we carried forward that recommendation into this plan, as well as the proposed on and off-road trail recommendations from the recently amended 2022 comp plan as well. Additionally, through our public survey, we received some comments about 4 intersections in Fort Atkinson that survey respondents felt were potentially unsafe crossings for pedestrian and bicyclists. So those intersections have been noted with the red cross on the map as well. We also recommended 4 additional trail segments, and really those segments are focused on connecting existing trails and proposed trails to connect as many of the parks in Fort Atkinson as possible that you could, bike and walk to. And those are denoted with the letters A, B, C, and D. Next. Another Key part of the plan is we have a 2-page park spread of every park in the system, and they detail the facilities and amenities there, an installation year if that was available, photos, aerial imagery. And then most importantly, there's a list of recommended improvements for each park with a prioritization and a cost estimate. And that prioritization really refers to the year ideally in which the improvement would be implemented. So for high priority projects, that's going to be in the next 1 to 3 years, medium 3 to 5 years, and low priority in the next 6+ years, which would also be in the time frame for when the corp would need to be updated. Next. This is MSA's methodology for a proposed new park development fee. And to just back up briefly, there's park development fees and there's land dedication and fee in lieu. So land dedication refers to setting aside public land every time there's a new subdivision proposed in Fort Atkinson. And for single family homes, that's at a rate of 1,000 square feet per dwelling unit. And when it's not possible to set aside that land dedication, the city and the planning commission can choose to charge a fee in lieu. So separate from land dedication and fee in lieu is a proposed park development fee. So park development fees actually raise funds to develop and build the facilities on a park. So that's your playground, your ball courts, your lights. Land dedication and fee in lieu only sets aside the land. Park development fees raise the fund to develop the land into the park that we're more familiar with. So key to this calculation is kind of a typical cost for a community park and a neighborhood park, and typical amenities, and all of those costs are in 2022 dollars. And we did a specific review to make sure that they're reflecting current costs, since we know those have gone up in the last few years. And then kind of with those typical park costs in mind, we look at the projected population increase that Fort is expected to see in the next 10 years. And we translate that into a household projection and a dwelling unit projection. And ultimately, we have that total cost of the total cost to develop the parkland that would be set aside with each new dwelling unit that's projected to be built, or the city is projected to need in the next 10 years. And then that fee is charged on a dwelling unit basis for multifamily and for single family. And the intention is that if all of the dwelling units were built and all of those fees were charged, that would raise enough money to develop all the park facilities in 10 years. Moving on.
I'm sorry, can you just clarify on that? So who is that fee assessed to? Is that the developer, or would that be the actual homeowner?
So the fee is charged to the homeowner, but through the developer. So where there can be modifications is really the transparency in which the fee is charged. So the homeowner is always going to be paying the fee, but it's up to the developer if the homeowner sees that line item in the fee or in their, housing costs, or if that developer is paying that fee at the time that the building permit is pulled, and then they're charging the homeowner later. But typically, I think the homeowner wouldn't see that line item, but there is some degree of variability.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I will just also add to clarify, these any park development fees would have to be approved through a separate action by the city council that would require an ordinance. So these park
Absolutely.
development fees are simply a recommendation in this corp.
Absolutely, yeah. These fees are not adopted through the adoption of this plan. Those are separate processes. This is simply a proposal within the corp. Thank you. Moving forward. Briefly, if you imagine all of those recommended improvement tables from the park spreads, we just compiled them into one big table at the end of the document for the purposes of capital improvement planning. And this is just a snapshot of that longer table from the document. Next. And then finally, at the request of the Parks and Recreation Board, we did develop this kind of exploratory concept plan for what a splash pad at some of the open green space in Ralph Park could look like. This is meant to just be sort of an exercise in how this area within the park could be used, but it's not meant to be interpreted or taken as a commitment on the part of the city to actually move forward with this plan. It's really just an exploration and kind of in a concept phase. Next. And then finally, I am more than happy to answer any of your questions, and I look forward to hearing your decision on adopting the plan this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. One of my questions, and I'm not sure if this is for you or Brooke, if this would be more for you, but I saw it noted in the memo that in order to basically stay eligible for those state and federal grants, that the corp has to be updated every 5 years.
Yes.
Is that the same financial and like work level commitment of what we just went through? Or is it kind of a case of once you already have one, then it's a much simpler process for that 5-year update, or kind of what is that system?
Yeah, I can definitely answer that. It will be a smaller financial cost and a lesser kind of lift this next time around. There's definitely a lot more work that goes into get this initial round. Even just creating the document and InDesign is more involved. So yes, now that you have the plan, those 5-year updates should be a little bit less time intensive and less of a financial cost.
Okay, great, thank you.
I was blessed to be on the commission that worked on this plan. I mean, blessed. I've lived here my entire life, and I was surprised that there were parks I didn't know about. One of the things we did is we took a tour of every park in town, and I was very impressed with the park system. It's wonderfully done. It's wonderfully managed, and this is an opportunity to continue that and improve that in many ways. Where the city budget is tight, this will allow us to achieve grants that we get help from the federal government to make this happen. Is very cool. And the stuff that they talked about is also very cool.
That kind of reminded me, Brooke, I was going to ask, do you know, are there any grants kind of on the horizon or that you know of that, you know, you're excited about, or that, you know, hey, we've been wanting to explore something like this, and now with this corp, we'd have the potential to explore some of those funding opportunities?
Yeah, so there's the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant that has a deadline date of May 1st annually, that they have this grant available for communities who have a corp. So you have to have a corp to be eligible for these grants. And I have been in talks with some community organizations. You know, I mentioned earlier that you have to have a matching grant. So we need those funds as well. So we need to work with those community organizations to provide and our community foundation to provide for that matching grant. But we do have some projects in the works that we're excited for.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. I agree fully. Brooke, I, like Councilman Johnson, I was briefly on the Parks and Rec board. I think when we kind of started the initial planning for the corp plan. So I was very excited to see this come to completion. Assuming the council were to adopt this tonight, is this going to get posted on the Parks and Rec website, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a process. So we are happy to showcase it off to the community.
Yeah, and I know in the plan there were a couple things that I've heard about requested often over the last few years. Heard about the splash pad. I know a dog park potentially is mentioned in the plan. If there's things like residents are really interested in seeing happen, do you have like any suggestions on what they could do to try to make those come to fruition?
I mean, give me a call. You know, it's always good to see what residents would like to see in our community. And that's why we did so many public engagement opportunities, because ultimately we're planning for you. We're planning for the community. You know, you're the ones that are going to be using it. So we want to know what you want to see in it. So we definitely take those comments seriously, and in the planning phases of, you know, as a lot of projects in the city need extra funds for. So, you know, if you want to lead a funding group to see something in the community, you know, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that too.
That's great. Thank you.
And there is a link to the full plan in our, if anybody's sitting out there listening to this really wants to take a look early, if you pull up our packet that is listed on the city website, there is a direct link in there to the full recreation plan.
And we'll make sure to get it up on the city's website following this night as well.
And I'll just add as well, one of the last things to do is we are going to make like an executive summary version of the plan too. That's a little bit more simplified. That, can be used to share even more widely with the public.
We can't take your questions, but you can ask us after the meeting.
No, I just want to introduce them.
Oh, did I not introduce myself?
I know, I realized that when I sat down, I was too excited that all of you were here to learn about parks. So I'm Brooke Francine, the Parks and Recreation Director.
And thank you. I didn't even realize. I'm Emily Soderberg. I'm an assistant planner with MSA. So we're the consultant that worked with Brooke and the city for the past almost year working on developing this plan. Thank you.
Well, my dad was the director here for 30 years before Brooke, so Park and Rec is near and dear to my heart. So I move to approve the resolution adopting the 2023 through 2028 City of Fort Atkinson Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a couple of seconds. Any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 7B, which is the review and possible action relating to a resolution amending the 2022 budget to reallocate funds from the tax incremental district number 7 to tax incremental district number 6.
Thank you. So in November of 2021, the city council adopted the 2022 operating budget. And that document included a plan to spend about $200,000 within tax increment district 7, which is located in the city's downtown, on replacement or refabrication of railings along the Riverwalk. However, the expenditure period for new projects in that tax incremental district ended in January of 2022, so staff was not able to complete that project. So during the 2023 budget process, staff did indicate to the city council that a budget amendment would be forthcoming. The approved 2023 budget document included a 2022 estimate of $210,000 as a transfer out from TID 7 to TID 6. So staff is proposing a budget amendment to the 2022 budget to allocate $207,264.74 as a transfer from TID 7 to TID 6 for a total transfer in 2022 of $208,264.74. And that will have an ending balance for Fund 13, which is TID 7 at $0, which is what we want to see. So you have a table in the memo that includes the history of the transfers from TID 7 to TID 6. So you can see that in actual numbers previously, the transfer from 7 to 6 was more substantial. We backed it down in 22 to do that project, but then unfortunately came to the realization that we could not complete it. And as such, we're asking that the council adopt the resolution amending this budget, amending the 2022 budget to reallocate funds from TID 7 to TID 6 and authorize the city manager to direct the transfer of funds. There's just some general information on the second page of the memo that I just want to point out for everybody's information. It does seem like a large dollar amount, but there are no general property tax dollars to be used in the transfer. It is increment generated from TID 7 that will be transferred to TID 6 to help pay off the debt of TID 6, which is a distressed TID. When that debt is paid off, we will be able to close TID 6, 7, and 8, and all of that value will come back onto the general tax roll. So for the remaining life of TID 7, we are planning to close that between 2025 and 2027, depending on when we can pay off the debt from TID 6. But for the remaining life of TID 7, that increment can be used for administrative costs, paying off its own debt in 7, and then transfers to TID 6 to pay off that debt. And a 100% audit has been budgeted for TID 7 and is scheduled to be done by the city's auditors in 2023. I would be happy to answer any other questions about this budget amendment.
As we were talking about a little bit before the meeting, TIDs can be kind of confusing and they're not something that the average person deals with every day, but I appreciated in the memo how you explained it and laid things out. And then again, this is not affecting general property tax dollars. I think that's just important to remember. So thank you.
And I kind of like the statement that you made that this is paying off debt. That reference is cool because you don't hear the government say that very often. So I'm glad we can lead the way.
I would make the motion to approve the resolution amending the 2022 budget to reallocate funds from tax incremental district number 7 to tax incremental district number 6 in the amount of $207,000, $264.74.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. That takes us to agenda item 8, reports of officers, boards, and committees. 8A is the city manager's report.
Thank you. The city received a $3,000 donation from the Rotary Club for the new snowflake holiday lights in the city's downtown and Madison Avenue corridors. I want to thank the Rotary Club for their support. Council President Scheer, Engineer Stelly, and I spoke at the Wisconsin Economic Development Association's Governors Conference on Economic Development last week. With the help of our planners at Vanderwall and Associates, we presented the city's efforts at developing the city-owned land along Banker Road. And along those lines, the city has been negotiating with our development partners at Hoffman Development Group and Cedar Prize. And we are hopeful that an agreement will come before the Plan Commission and City Council in the coming weeks for the first phase of that project, which will include some much needed multifamily housing units in the city. The Dwight Foster Public Library hosted a 4K art gala on January 31st. The event featured artwork from all of the 4K students in the community, and I was proud to attend to and see the beautiful work, including from my own daughter, Sloan, who used construction paper to create a polar bear. So thank you to all those involved for planning, organizing, and staffing that great event. In honor of Groundhog's Day on February 2nd, the Fort High School FFA once again brought 2 guinea pigs to the municipal building. Staff from the city and the school district brought George outside to predict the weather this spring. And I'm pleased to say that George did not see a shadow, and we are set for an early spring. The city has completed the first half of property tax collections on behalf of the 4 taxing jurisdictions in the city here, which include the city, the school district, the county, and the technical college district. If anybody did miss that January 31st deadline, or they want to pay the second installment by the July 31st deadline, they will need to reach out to the Jefferson County Treasurer's Office. The city's auditors are completing field work this week to prepare the city's 2022 financial statements. So far, the process has been going well, and we look forward to presenting year-end information to the council in late February or early March. And the actual audit will likely be complete this summer and presented to the council and the public at that time. In-person absentee voting for the February 21st primary election began today in the city clerk's office. The race on the ballot is a primary for Justice of the Supreme Court. Just a reminder that everyone needs an ID to vote by absentee ballot or in person on election day. And also that at the last city council meeting, the council did vote to move the second meeting in February from February 21st to February 23rd. So that's a Thursday, so that it does not conflict with the election. The agenda and packet will likely be on the city's website still on Friday, February 17th. Also, the city will host a meeting for elected and appointed municipal leaders in Jefferson County, as well as staff from the Jefferson County Economic Development Consortium and our state legislators on Monday, February 20th at 1 p.m. at the library. The goal of the meeting is to connect local elected and appointed officials and also discuss local economic development efforts and municipal funding options and opportunities. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda item number 9, which is unfinished business. This evening we have none. Agenda item number 10 is new business. 10A is the review and possible action relating to revisions to the City of Fort Atkinson Employee Handbook.
Thank you.
The employee handbook is a vital tool that provides employees with policies and programs that affect their employment with the city of Fort Atkinson. Staff reviews the handbook annually, identify needed or desired revisions. In 2017, we partnered with attorneys from Boardman and Clark to review the existing policies in relation to legal standards. Then in July of 2019, the city began a membership with MRA, which is a human resource firm. They reviewed the handbook in relation to employee practices, workplace accommodations, contagious diseases, and most recently pandemic and remote work, which everyone's familiar with. Council last approved and reviewed any revisions in December 2021. In 2022, staff had tracked changes or revisions to reflect existing practices and provide clarification. There was no other changes other than confirming existing practices as mentioned. In the fall of 2022, a handbook committee was formed, made up of 8 employees from various departments within the city and levels of organization. They met with the goal of making any recommendations or suggestions. From there, those recommendations or suggestions went to the management team. They met on November 16th to review what was presented, and then Manager Lemire and I kind of performed further review. As standard and required, the handbook committee, the employee handbook then went to the finance committee. It was reviewed on January 10th. It was very great discussion and review of all the suggestions and corrections and then any changes or improvements. The finance committee had recommended that the council approve the employee handbook as presented. Be happy to answer any questions. The memo provided did detail with the different sections, whether something was inserted or was adjusted or changed.
Having been part of the finance committee that had a chance to review this document and these changes, I thought the team did a very good, thorough job in updating some of these things. I thought the changes that were made sense. There was a lot of common sense adjustments. So I appreciate the work that was put into this.
Agree. I think I asked all my questions at that January meeting and they were all updated and reflected within this.
I'll move to approve the 2023 revisions to the City of Fort Atkinson Employee Handbook.
Second.
Sorry. We have a motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. That takes us to agenda item 10B, which is the review and possible action relating to an amended rural ambulance agreement between the City of Fort Atkinson and the town of Koshkonong.
Thank you. As you recall, on December 20th, 2022, the City Council approved 5 rural ambulance agreements with the surrounding townships to begin 24/7 911 EMS service on January 1st, 2023. Staff noted at the time that the town of Koshkonong agreement would likely be amended in early 2023 to reflect the removal of the Bingham's Point area, also known as Black Hawk Bluff. Town officials did reach out and request that change in late December, but the required information was not included in that request. So we had to get the new legal description, the required population and the map together, which is why it is on the agenda tonight. So just to summarize, this is it's about 165 fewer people that the Fort Atkinson Fire Department will be providing fire and EMS service to. The EMS service numbers are based per capita. So they are at $7.65 per person and 3,359 people in the town of Koshkonong would be covered by the city, which equates to $25,699.22, which is invoiced quarterly to the town. Slightly lower than what we had projected due to the slightly lower number of people. However, at the time, in 2021, when this area was added to our fire and EMS agreements, our Fire Chief Roush did indicate some concern with being able to provide proper coverage. And I think the town of Koshkonong found that that coverage was not what was desired in that area. So they did request to remove the area from the city's fire and EMS service. for the possibility of better service from the Edgerton Fire and EMS Department. The amount of money that the difference here is just over $1,000, and it's not expected to negatively impact the overall budget of in Fund 7, which is the EMS fund, and that fund is separate from the city's general fund. So staff does recommend that the city council approve the amended rural ambulance agreement between the city of Port Atkinson and the town of Koshkonong. Would be happy to answer any questions.
I think given it's the same agreement as the other, what did we say, 5 that we approved the last time, and I know we all had a few questions then, but unless anyone has anything, I would move to approve the amended rural ambulance agreement between the city of Fort Atkinson and the town of Koshkonong.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. That takes us to agenda item 10C, which is the review and possible action relating to an alcohol beverage license agent change for Quick Trip number 439 at 1565 Madison Avenue.
Thank you. The agent is responsible. Let me start over. All alcohol license facilities have to appoint an agent. That time the agent is the owner of the business and sometimes the manager. The Quick Trip location number 439 is the original Quick Trip. That's at 1565 Madison Avenue. They've been fortunate to hire the managers and agents to train them and then to branch them off to other newer locations where they can then train staff. This so happened to be the situation with the store at 439. The agent is responsible for a lot of the running of the business on site, scheduling, ordering of the supplies, stocking supplies, kind of keeping tabs of the business, making sure it's run appropriately, hiring the staff and making sure that they all have their operator's license so they're able to sell alcoholic beverages to those of age. Agent change is a $10 charge that is to be submitted, which was paid appropriately. A successful background check was provided by the police department, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if the council had any.
Got to run into Mr. Galston on Saturday night and congratulate him on the move, and he was excited that he'll be at Madison Avenue, so that was a good thing. I will make the motion to approve the alcohol beverage license agent change for Quick Trip number 439 at 1565 Madison Avenue as recommended by the license committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. That takes us to agenda item 10D, which is the review and possible action relating to the alcohol beverage license application for Serendipity Salon LLC for the licensing period of February 8th, 2023 to June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. I had an application submitted from Serendipity Salon. They applied for a Class A intoxicating liquor license. There are several different types of licenses. There's Class A and Class B. Class A means you consume the alcohol away from the premise. That would be sales from a grocery store or a gas station. A Class B is where you consume the product on site. We commonly refer to Class Bs as bars. So it would be a bar restaurant would have a Class B. So then discussing Class A, there's 2 types of licenses within a Class A. One is to sell of intoxicating liquor and the other is for fermented malt beverage. So again, within Class A, there's 2 different types. The Serendipity Salon, Ms. McKinney has applied for a Class A intoxicating liquor license. This would allow the sale of wine and liquor at her location to be consumed off-site. The location is at 121 North Main Street, which is just in between the Fort Tax and 5 Star Antiques. She has a salon and boutique. Within the packet, there was some materials that outlined the business model and some photos from her shop showing some of the items that she does sell. The applicant provided proof of a Wisconsin seller's permit and federal ID, which is required. As the property is leased, we did get a copy of the current lease. And then a successful background check was also performed, which is required through our police department. I will note that salons, spas, and barber shops, bridal shops, those locations are able to get a Class A retail beverage license. Again, this does not allow consumption on site for these locations. It allows them to buy the product and to leave with it. Ms. McKinney has plans to provide the sales of liquor to be as baskets and boutique and gift shop location. And I know she is in our audience. If the council had any questions, I'm sure she'd be happy to address them. Or I can answer any questions myself or any clarification on the license.
Just for
My only question
clarification,
was just, oh, go ahead, Chris.
oh, I was just saying, just for clarification, this would be our last Class A intoxicating liquor license available, correct?
It would be. The reason this one is available is the Floral and Gift had closed and surrendered their license. We do have two businesses, two gas stations that were aware of the availability as we increased the quota, but they had not applied for it.
And sitting on the license committee, a couple other things that we learned is that although this is the last Class A license of this category, the city council does can control that quota, whereas Class B licenses those quotas are managed by the state level. And a couple other things that came out of that meeting was that the other people who expressed interest in it were reached out to when this became available, and Serendipity Salon was the only actual applicant for it. So probably a little bit less contentious than our last liquor license approval. So.
No, I actually thought this was a good application. It was a little more thorough than some of the other ones we've gotten in the past, and I like that they're highlighting apparently going to be carrying a lot of locally made products and Wisconsin made products. That was nice to see too.
Yeah, great information that was provided by the owner in our packet for us, and certainly nice to have the ability to have a business downtown that can provide some additional retail options and hopefully get some people through their doors, whether they're there for a salon appointment or not, but maybe to hopefully come through to use that as a new shopping destination.
I'll move to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll move to approve the alcohol beverage license application for Serendipity Salon LLC for the licensing period of February 8th, 2023 to June 30th, 2023, as recommended by the license committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item 10E is the review and possible action on the purchase of 2 single axle plow trucks for the Department of Public Works in an amount not to exceed $420,466.
Okay, thank you. So this is an item that's come before the council before in March of last year, and it's an item that has been a struggle for the department to acquire these trucks. So just to give you some background, the council did approve on March 1st of 2022 at your regular meeting to allow for the purchase of these 2 single axle plow trucks and budget. And this is a CIP budget item that was approved. But due to the economic slowdown and supply chain issues, the manufacturer's inability to complete orders, we have struggled to get this order placed. So we've spent the last several months working with our suppliers and trying to get the order placed and to no avail. At this very moment, the order bank is open and we're capable of placing the order, but due to the supply chain issues and manufacturer problems, the price has been increased in order for us to acquire this. So what we did was at the department, we reached out to the previous awarded bidder and also some competition of theirs through the state bidding contract, and acquired 2 responses from them. So we did get a response from Kaiser, and we got a response back from Ewald, which is included in your packet here. At the March 1st meeting, the council approved the amount of $384,246,000 for the proposed purchase of these two single axle plow trucks. They will be equipped with dump bodies and snow salt equipment. The bid tabulation above showed reflects the current 2024 chassis and appropriate upfit pricing. And in that financial analysis, you'll see in the bid tab the response from both Kaiser and Ewald Ford, and then Lakeside International, which is, I'm sorry, not Lakeside, Monroe. That's a misprint, but Monroe is our upfitter for our dump bodies and our plow equipment. And the response from them also. So we've had slight price increases from both Ford and the upfitter. Staff proposes the following existing funding sources for the proposed two single axle plow trucks. So in essence, I'm here to ask for slightly more money in order to get these trucks ordered. And in doing so, you'll see in the table 2, the CIP for 2023 was awarded for $15,000 for a wing plow to be added to what is essentially one of our single axle plow trucks that does not have a wing. We will forego that purchase and add those funds into the mix to acquire these two trucks. And I worked with City Manager Lemire and Clerk Ebert to find the additional $21,000 in funds. And that will come out of a borrow that took place in May of 2022 that went for the purchase of fire rescue unit that the city borrowed $420,000 for. And but roughly $290,000 was needed for the city's portion of the purchase. So there are some excess funds in that borrow that I would like to appropriate $21,000 to purchase the two plow trucks out of that. So I'm here to ask for approval to go ahead and place the order, which I will do immediately should I get the approval, because I don't want to miss this window. And if you've got any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Is this addition to the current fleet, or will it be?
No, this is a replacement of the 299s.
Okay.
The 99s that we have are still currently in service, and we'll use them up until we receive the two new trucks.
Is there any resale value on those, or?
There's some, yes, there's some. Unfortunately, the nature of the beast of these plow trucks after they age past 20 years, unfortunately, a $200,000 plow truck sells roughly somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000 as equipped. So there is some value, and we'll try to recoup as much as we can, but that's typically what we get for those.
Tom, you do note in the memo that one of those trucks is 24 years old currently. Is there?
True, they're twins. They were purchased the same year.
I mean, I think that's worth noting just to understand. These are very large numbers to see, but when you also think about the service that those vehicles provide and the fact that the two existing ones are 24 years old, I think is pretty impressive.
Correct.
Is that the anticipation? I mean, is that still kind of the ongoing quality of the vehicles, that there would be an expectation of, potentially getting another 2 decades out of the new ones?
So theoretically speaking, we should be trying to follow a model to replace them a bit sooner.
Okay.
But obviously with the current financial conditions, we get as much life as we can out of them. So I try to budget and anticipate 15 years of service, but it's very likely that 20 years of service will be necessary.
I appreciate the work and planning that went into this. And as you mentioned, the difficult purchasing environment for all these types of equipment right now. I know it's not easy. It's not like it used to be even just 3-4 years ago.
It's been an adventure for sure.
I will move to authorize the purchase of 2 single axle plow trucks for the Department of Public Works, an amount not to exceed $420,466.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. It takes us to 10F, which is the review and possible action on the purchase of wheel loader repair parts for the Department of Public Works in an amount not to exceed $17,400.50.
So this is it's not been my night, but I'm here to ask again for approval to expend some more money to repair some equipment that we have. We employ 3 wheel loaders, and they're all employed to create and complete various tasks throughout the city throughout the year. But in essence, through the wintertime, we do use them to move snow in many of the neighborhoods. This particular piece of equipment is referred to as fleet truck number 3. And this is an essential piece that removes the snow from downtown. It had a catastrophic failure the last time we tried to move snow from downtown. So we lost the rear driver's side brake setup and the rear hub assembly failed. So we reached out to the supplier of that equipment to us, Miller Bradford. And it took some time, but we mapped out the parts needed and necessary to make the repairs. They presented us with a proposal and the following financial analysis. You'll see the spreadsheet that is the proposal that of the needed equipment to make this repair. Again, as a piece of heavy equipment that's vital to our snow removal and material handling operations for this particular department, it's very imperative we get this thing going back as soon as we can. So Miller Bradford provided the following cost analysis. And due to the nature of this type of equipment, the city's developed relationship with Miller Bradford and felt that they're the best opportunity for us to get the materials from. We're recommending that council approve and authorize the purchase of the needed parts for the repair of fleet vehicle number 43 in the amount of $17,400.50, of which our street machine supplies account will be utilized to pay for this.
Tom, I apologize if this was in the memo, but
Mhm.
supply chain wise, I mean, what is your anticipated timing on replacing this? And is
So
that going to be
everything-
causing any
Yeah.
issues with, hey, we get snow next week?
We have a couple week lead time on it.
Okay.
We do
Oh,
have
wow.
two operational
Okay.
loaders, and we will process this as quickly as possible. But Miller Bradford seems to think they can source all the parts for us within a 2-week lead time.
Wow. Okay. That's very different from a lot of other.
So I'm grateful that they can.
Yeah. Great.
I'm glad this will get taken care of quickly, so I will move to authorize the purchase of wheel loader repair parts for the Department of Public Works in an amount not to exceed $17,400.50.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. 10G is the review and possible action relating to the purchase of an after-hours alarm notification replacement for the water utility at a cost of not more than $8,043.
Mine's a little less than Tom, so should be good here. Our current dialer that we have for our after hours call out is failing. I'm doing the memo I said due to some issues with Windows 10 upgrades and stuff like that. So our supplier that supplies all our SCADA equipment or supervisory control and data acquisition recommends we replace it to this top view alarm notification system. Wastewater is currently using it. They have no problems with it. So we're running on our backup most of the time now. So it's a vital piece of equipment that we have to alert us to our call outs after hours when we're not there no more. So basically it's $8,043 was already set aside in CIP from 2023 or for 2023. So money has been already set off to the side for it. So and approved in the CIP. So questions?
I move to authorize the purchase of an after-hours alarm notification replacement for the water utility at a cost of not more than $8,043.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Agenda item 11 is miscellaneous. This evening we have none. Agenda item 12 is claims appropriations and contract payments. 12A is the review and possible action relating to disallow a claim against the city of Fort Atkinson.
I'm sorry. I was thinking we're on the next agenda item. My apology. City started working with insurance company, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, in 2021. They handle their insurance carrier. They handle all the property liability and workers' comp insurance for the city. On September 22, 2022, I did receive a notice of claim from two individuals. They alleged that they had incurred injuries and damages following interaction with our police officers that responded to a call. It is standard for these claims to be submitted to our insurance company. And then our insurance company there reviews the claim and then recommends that the city council disallow the claim. This is procedural among state statutes. Upon disallowance of the claim, I mail a certified letter to the claimants stating that it was disallowed. They then have a 6-month limitation to where they could respond with their attorneys. There's no financial impact to disallow the claim at this time. And it is recommended by our insurance company per state statute to disallow the claims against the city of Fort Atkinson.
Michelle, can you just clarify for me that the suggestion or the advice to disallow, is that simply based on the state statute that exists, or is it based on that plus the content of the claim? There just wasn't really anything in the memo or the letter from the insurance company about why they're saying that. So is it just simply because of that state statute?
It's the process per state statute.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In my experience, my 8 years on the council, it's been our practice to follow through with that process. So I will, sorry, I'm looking for the motion. I will move to disallow the claim against the city of Port Atkinson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comment? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. That takes us to 12B, which is the review and possible action relating to the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to approve the verified claims as presented and authorize payment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Scheer.
Aye. That motion carries. Agenda item 13, the city council may consider a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to state statute 19.851E to conduct other specified public business where competitive reasons require a closed session to negotiate an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement with 2L Loeb LLC. And just as a note, the city council may return to open session and may take action relating to this after the closed session.
I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to state statute 19.851E to conduct other specified public business where competitive reasons require a closed session to negotiate an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement with 2L Loeb LLC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz.
Aye.
President Scheer.
Aye. That motion is approved. We will now adjourn into closed session.
Return to open session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz.
Aye.
President Scheer.
Aye.
Thank you.
We are now back in open session.
I think the council, I mean, I think you were going to, but I think the council should give the members of the public just a second to get back before they take action on the final agenda item.
Maybe don't mess around.
Honestly, kind of shocked this is gonna get done at just after 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's time.
10:30 night.
I thought the 3 minutes, I think, worked pretty well. Everybody seemed to kind of.
You with that gavel.
Was there anybody else coming up? Okay.
All right, we are back in open session. We will look at agenda item 14, which is action relating to an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement with 2L Loeb LLC.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the agreement that we purchased the 3 properties out at the what was called the Lorman Salvage Yard 2 years ago, I believe is what it was. That agreement is no longer working for us. We've had a discussion with Bruce Loeb, who we purchased the 3 properties from, as well as our attorneys, and are looking to amend that agreement such that Bruce will no longer be a party to that agreement. He will essentially move on and not be associated with the project any longer. The city will continue that project. As council has been briefed in the past, we have gone through the site investigation on those 3 parcels. We did find some contaminated materials. We have done some remediation of those materials, but we still have some reporting and a number of other items to move forward on out there before we are, I guess, completely to the end of that site. The end is really going to be after the 5-year period when we're able to define what redevelopment will look like out there. That's going to be the point at which we can finally put this to rest. So the agreement, it was an outstanding project and an outstanding agreement in the beginning. Now that we're on the back end of it, it's just no longer serving our purposes for the city's interest nor Mr. Loeb's. We have talked to Mr. Loeb and his attorney. They were able to review the agreement that was drafted by the city's attorney, and everybody is in favor of this. So just coming before you this evening for any questions you might have and asking you to authorize signature by city staff.
I think you answered our questions already. I'll move to approve the amendment to the purchase and sale agreement with 2L Loeb LLC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Agenda item 15 is adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.